evening and welcome again to our program, Women to Women. It's good to have you with us tonight. My guest is Isabel Coscarat, and we're going to talk with Isabel. She's the youngest interviewee I've ever had on the program yet, but there's a reason for that. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils, balsamic vinegars, and international teas, as well as Vila Basque, Deli and Cafe, home of Pete's famous chorizo. And now it's with pleasure that I welcome Isabel to us. Isabel, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
You know, Isabel, we have been friends for some time. And in the introduction, I said, there's a reason that I have you on this program, okay, even as a young 22-year-old. You're a woman. And you have an exciting future ahead of you. But you also come from an international family of sorts. Can you help us understand what it's like growing up with a mother from South America and a father from Europe? What kind of a cultural background does this blend into?
Well, for me, it's been kind of fun and exciting because it's very different from obviously like my friends growing up, you know, and their families who are from America, and having my parents being my dad from Spain, my mom from El Salvador. So those two cultures are a little bit different, but it's fun and it's nice because we have big families and
they believe in the extended families, which is wonderful.
Family is a big deal.
Yes, it's a very big deal. And whenever there's an occasion, whether it's a birthday party, it's an anniversary, it's an award, it's a ceremony of some kind, how many come?
A lot, like maybe 50, 60, and that's only part of the family. If it's everyone, then it's even more than that. So.
But how wonderful to have cousins, first, second, third, fourth cousins, and they're all family. Well, tell me, what language do you use in your home?
Well, I speak Spanish with my mom and with my dad as well, but I obviously, you know, I speak more English because of school and because of work and everything, and so sometimes when I'm speaking English at the home, my mom can get on me a little bit because she really wants me to hold on to my Spanish, and because that's very important for my future.
That's right, and for your family as well.
Yes, of course.
Where were you born, Isabel?
I was actually born in Elko, Nevada, and I grew up in Battle Mountain until I was 6 years old, and then I moved to Carson City.
Was that a change, even at 6 years of age? Did you notice a change in anything moving from Battle Mountain to Carson City?
I don't really remember because I was so young, but I just remember that in Battle Mountain it was such a small town and everything was so close by, and you knew everybody, like everyone surrounding. And then Carson City was different because it was bigger. A lot of people may not see Carson City as a big city, but for me it was, and going into a new school and with new friends and all that, but it was a good experience, and I'm glad that we moved.
Yes. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have one older sister, Veronica.
All right. How much older is Veronica than you?
She's 6 years older than me.
Okay, so you're kind of the baby of the family.
Yes.
You have two parents who are very active in business, and I know that they have been in business for many, many years. Does it feel natural to have the restaurant as much a part of your home as your real home?
It does, because every time after school I would come to the restaurant, or on the weekends when my parents were working, when I was younger, I'd be in the office just playing around or watching Shirley Temple on a little TV that we had in there. And so that's become part of my life, is the business, and working here since I was younger, and I still work here on the weekends, so I would say so, very much.
Now, what about your education? You graduated from high school. From what high school did you graduate
Carson
from?
High.
Carson High. That's a good one to graduate from if you're from Carson City,
Yes.
because a lot of famous people come out of there. And then what did you do with your education after that?
And then after that, I ended up going to Western Nevada College, and I graduated my Associates of Arts. And after that, I ended up moving to Texas, and I did a discipleship program for a year just to kind of get closer to God and also to help people in need. And I really got a heart for that over there. And now currently, I'm at UNR studying for international affairs, and I have about a year left for my bachelor's.
All right. You made a decision to leave Carson City. And is this a part of the passion that you have in your heart for a particular group of people, or just for people in general? What did that year in Texas do for you in terms of your growing closer, you said, to the Lord?
Well, that year for me was life-changing completely, because before I wasn't too sure what exactly I wanted to do with my life, and I thought this would be an amazing opportunity to just grow in my relationship with God and just to really know Him on a personal level. and just to see what he had for me. And when I was there, I had so many ministry opportunities, and my heart really grew more for children, for people in general, but more for children, because I had opportunities of ministering in different states and saw like the need of these children that come from very broken homes, and how they act at such a young age with such, you know, an anger and everything like that, but it's because of what they're living in right now. And so that really breaks my heart. And I also got the opportunity to go to Haiti, and I was there for 6 or 7 days, and I was able to see the great need over there, and the children especially.
This would have been after the hurricane.
Yes, after the hurricane.
Has the island recovered to a certain extent, or are they still awash with disastrous living conditions, health conditions, medical conditions? What did you see over there?
Well, seeing the videos of how it was after the hurricane, it has gotten better, but there's still a lot of need. There's thousands of people who are living in tent cities. There's a huge, different tent cities around there, but they're huge. And the people, you see little girls wearing like these dresses that as if they were for a wedding or something, because that's all that gets donated to them. And so in the weather, like 95-degree weather, there's these little girls who are, you know, so hot from wearing these dresses, but that's the only thing that they have to wear. And so with that and sanitation, and there's still a lot of recovery that needs to be done in Haiti.
What about medical assistance? Are they able, if a child, I'm sure that diphtheria, I'm sure that dysentery, typhoid can be conditions that they're dealing with. How do they assist? Do you see an international group? Do you see international groups, I should say, in there working medically to help?
I saw a few. I didn't really see as many as I thought I would. So I really do feel that they need that a lot.
So in other words, the trip to Haiti deepened your interest in children, children in need.
Yes.
So when you came back to the university to finish your final year and you decided to go into international studies, what was your hope to be able to do with the international study approach?
Well, I really want to help in a nonprofit organization or create one my own, and to be able to use that as a tool to help out these kids who are in need in the world. So
you have a connection, because I see it in the restaurant with people. Do you, when you look back and at the hours and the days and the months and the years that you spent here in your parents' restaurant, has that helped prepare you at all for this international eye that you have?
I believe it does, because growing up in business, you really get to handle with people and talk to them and just see how everything kind of works. And then even though restaurant business is completely different from what I'm going into, I feel that it really has been preparing me and equipping me for something like that in similar areas of just working with people and just how to deal and to talk to them about it. So
I'm kind of curious. We as Americans live in such an affluent world. And when we go into a third world nation such as Haiti is, quite often we're just aghast at how other peoples survive on so little when we have so much. How do you come to a realization in your own life that much of what you have may not even be necessary? What things did you come back after your trip to Haiti and realize you could do without?
Well, there's a lot of things that when I came back, I was just like, I can't believe all the clothes that I have. You know, I have this closet full of clothes and shoes, and over there maybe they have one pair of shoes with holes in them, or, you know, like the clothes that they do have, it's not suitable for the environment that they're in. And I have clothes for summer, spring, you know, everything like that. So for me, I think it was really looking at my clothing and also the food that we sometimes take for granted. Maybe we don't finish up our dinner and things like that. And, you know, there's people over there, they don't have anything. And being able to drink water over there, if you go anywhere here in the United States, legally you have to get a cup, you know, someone can give you water from a restaurant or things like that. But over there, they don't have that. And it's very hard for them just to even get the basics like water, which is so necessary.
I remember when I lived overseas in the Middle East, my mother-in-law measured everything by her hand because she knew exactly how much each of us would eat or should eat, and nothing more than that. And we were full by the end of a meal, but there was no waste. There was nothing because we didn't have refrigeration. So you made sure that there was nothing that was going to be left over that could spoil throughout the night, because the next day, if anybody ate that with the heat of the desert, they could certainly wind up with, a terrible stomach bacterial illness. When you came back, did your family see a difference in you, do you think? Did you feel a difference in yourself? You're a woman of God. There's a spiritual life inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
How had your spiritual life, it was nourished? How had it changed?
For me, I think it was that it was awakened, because I have always lived that life of going to church, and my parents had taught me since I was little, about God and reading the Bible and everything, but for me, it just never really hit on that personal relationship that you can have with God and how real He is. And so just going over there, God really just opened my eyes and revealed His realness in my life. And through experiences that I had, amazing things that happened in my life, I was able to see His reality, and that just really changed my heart and just how I live.
Can you give us a specific example in a fairly short period of time of one instance where God opened your eyes up and you realized something differently, completely differently for the first time?
Well, one experience that I did have was when I received the baptism of the Holy Spirit.
What does that mean?
Okay, well, it means that you end up receiving, the Holy Spirit is active in you. And so, you're able to speak in tongues, and you're able to, just have more of, an insight. I guess God gives you just more wisdom.
And that is something that in the Christian life, not everyone receives. That's one of the gifts that we talk about. So you realized that the Lord was calling you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that even as a little girl, I grew up sitting beside my mother one evening on a Sunday evening in our church. And I was listening to a missionary who had just returned from Africa. And this would have been in the very early 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, Africa was certainly not a developed nation. And it was a nation that needed so much help in the way of the children. And I realized as I was listening to this woman that there was something happening inside of me with a feeling that I wanted to help these children. But how could I at 8 years of age? But that was the big question to my mother. And when I look back now, I realize that early in our lives, God can be tapping us for a situation, preparing our hearts, preparing our thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And we can rebel against that for years. I did.
Mm-hmm.
But I also came back to that original call because He deepened it even further.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, Isabel, we realized that when you came back, I saw you, and I could see a depth. I could see a newness in your eyes, a refreshing on your face that I hadn't seen before. But I also realized that there was a person in particular who also had a new interest, but he hadn't ever met you yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about that when we come back. I'd like to thank again our viewing audience, and I like to leave clues for you as to what might be the real passion that is developing in Isabel's heart. It's there, it's about to show itself. So she'll reveal that when we come back.
This episode of Women to Women is brought to you by...
Are you looking for a healthier lifestyle? A more nutritious diet? Do you care about quality? If your answer is yes, or if you are just curious, come into Villa Basque Deli and Cafe right here in Carson City, Nevada. Discover fine Portuguese extra virgin olive oils, vintage balsamic vinegars, and a wide assortment of international health teas provided by distributor Carpa Nevada LLC. In addition to these terrific items, Villa Basque is also the home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, handmade on the premises from Pete's secret family recipe. Satisfy your culinary curiosities. Don't delay.
How was school today?
Cool, we learned what to do in case there's an emergency.
Oh, will you show me?
Yeah, and if there is an earthquake, then you get under your desk, duck, cover, and hold. And when the shaking stops,
we evacuate the school just like a fire drill.
I'm glad you both know what to do in case of an emergency, but I'd still be worried.
You're supposed to check the phone, radio, or TV, and they'll tell you what to do.
Make a plan.
Assemble a kit.
Stay informed.
And be ready.
Living in the wildland urban interface can be risky. These photos show how Defensible Space saved this home. Visit these websites to learn more about defensible space and wildfire preparedness. Make a plan, assemble a kit, stay informed, and be ready.
Welcome back again to our program Women to Women, and this evening we have with us in the studio Isabel Coscarat. And as I mentioned before, this is a very unusual, she's a rare young woman of today in this country or perhaps any country, because she has a very strong faith, and that's a part, that is her identity. Her faith is her identity. And she has been helping us understand that growing up in an international home with a mother from El Salvador and a father from Spain, that the cultures come together, and they come together in Spanish, but they also come together in English. But both parents is very strong in their support of the cultural ties that Isabel has to both nations, to both parts of the world. And to fit that into an American scene is sometimes a challenge. And having faith in America is also a challenge every day. So, Isabel, again, thank you so much for being with us.
Of course, thank you.
Now, you shared that you spent a part of last year at a very special place in Texas.
Yes.
Okay. And you went there because you wanted to be in an environment to let your faith grow and to experience on a more personal level, if possible. And when you open up your heart, God makes that possible to you. And you did. You grew closer to your God. And you went on the trip to Haiti, and you saw things for the first time in your life that were shocking, disturbing, and it was after the devastating hurricane. So you saw adults, you saw senior citizens, older people, and children struggling to really live throughout a day in many cases. So what I'm wondering here, Isabel, when you came back and you shared this mission experience with your family, with your friends here in Carson City, did you ever wonder in your heart or in your mind, will I meet someone who feels somehow the same as I do, that has a love of God? Because that's hard to find. Lots of people don't talk about it. They're afraid to talk about it. They know that there's a challenge out there against it. But how did you deal with your personal thoughts, if I may ask that? Did you want someone to come along? Had you not met anyone until recently? What?
Well, that was personal questions, but yes, I've always had the desire in my heart to find the person that I was supposed to be with. I think that's with any girl. They want to find their Prince Charming, and have that fairy tale. And being in Texas and everything, I didn't find anybody that I really, had seen that with, and I wasn't really interested at the time because I was so focused on my relationship with God. And I had this really big passion and, just this heart for people, and I was just really wanting to do what God had for me. And I remember when I came back from Texas, I was just thinking, I was just talking to God, and I was just like, God, if you didn't want me to get married, if you, and you wanted me just to I just want to do your will, whatever your will is, but God knows the desires of your heart. And and so he ended up bringing along somebody very special in my life, and I ended up finding my Prince Charming.
The story behind this very special young man is intriguing by itself, because as I understand it, you can correct me, Isabel, if I'm wrong, he had learned through a trusted friend that there was someone that this trusted friend believed that, his name is Ryan, that Ryan needed to meet. And Ryan tried his best, but you left before ever having met Ryan. What happened after that the door opened up for you and Ryan to actually meet one another? Because you were back here in Carson City. He was back in Texas. Who is Ryan, by the way?
Well, Ryan, he's my fiance. I just got engaged a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations.
And so, thank you very much. We're really excited about it. And like you said, it was very interesting how the whole story started because, he didn't get a chance to meet me while I was in Texas. And it started through a friend who was a youth pastor actually at the church that I was at.
A youth pastor?
Yes.
Okay.
And so they were friends, and so he had told him, he was like, you really need to meet this girl, Isabel, and he kept bugging him, and he kept bugging me about it, and I was just like, no, I really just want to concentrate my relationship with God this year. And so it's funny because he had contacted me when I was in Texas, but I just really kind of gave him the cold shoulder because I just really want to concentrate on God. And so when I ended up moving back here to Nevada, he ended up writing me on Facebook, and he told me, it's like a 21st century kind of thing how it happened. And he wrote me, and he just like apologized if he had said something that had offended me or anything like that. And I had just told him that I was just, like I explained the reasoning behind it and everything, but just talking to him, and we would just start talking a little bit, and I could just see a passion that he had for God, which is so hard to find here, like in this day and age. It really is.
Yes. And for him to have taken the next step of apologizing in case he had in some way offended you, that talks about a sensitivity there, a respect there for your feelings and for who you are as a person. So that's another major hurdle for a young woman who has a heart for God inside of her, to recognize that and to say to herself, perhaps God is opening a door here. There have been times, I'm sure, when Ryan was ready to give up, because long-distance relationships usually don't work. How did he persist?
I don't know. I really don't know, but I mean, I think just when God puts things together, people together, it just, it happens on its own, and God ends up putting like a peace and things like that in our hearts. And so just for us, just really through him,
what does
that we were brought together. He's a youth pastor in Texas.
So 2 youth pastors were working on this situation. Okay, that's pretty powerful teamwork.
Yeah, it is.
Now, I understand that you and Ryan have talked about future plans in the mission field. What does that mean?
Well, his heart is really for the youth because he's a youth pastor, and mine is through reaching out to people worldwide and stuff. And so we would really like to begin a nonprofit organization or something like that to be able to reach out to them through ministry and being able to go out with them and preaching the gospel and also giving them meeting their needs that they have. So that's something that's really on our heart.
So you are open to in-the-country mission work as well as outside of the country mission work.
Yes, both.
And there is a danger. Have you been keeping tab on the news of what often happens to missionaries, regardless of older missionaries, younger missionaries, women who are working with other women in mission fields? It's a very dangerous world out there. So when you consider that you may travel and you may bring the word of God to those that you need to hear it, who are hungry for it, do you also consider that there are ways in which you need to prepare yourself for that kind of dangerous mission work? How do you go about a step? You're not married yet, your wedding is coming up, and I know there's a lot of discussion. And you will be the wife of a pastor, of a youth pastor. So you intend to team with him on the youth work that he has in Texas now. And that may be preparation time for future plans that God has for both of you.
Yes.
Yes. Well, why is it so difficult? You touched on that subject. Why is it so increasingly difficult, hard, to find people who believe? What happens, you saw in the faces of children in Texas that you ministered to. There are lots of dysfunctional homes, lots of divorces out there. And we kind of have this expression, if actually it comes from Texas. Ryan should know this.
Probably.
Okay. Whoever brought you to the dance, you go home with. Okay? Meaning that the one who is committed to taking you to the dance, you're committed to going home with that person, okay? And you're not doing flirtatious behaviors in between arriving at the dance and leaving the dance. And it's like you're saying, when you arrive with Christ, you're committed to Christ. And you know that you have a home with Christ, and you're going home with Christ one day. So there is no fear. There's a real security and a real confidence. What has happened in the generation that you come from that has disturbed all of that? When you think back to your high school days here in Carson City, you think of the campus that you're attending.
Yes.
You see many things, and you hear many things. And you must wonder as a young woman, why is it falling apart? What can I do? Should I try? Is it overwhelming? Can one person make a difference? Can one person actually make a difference, do you think?
I think so.
How?
Just really standing up in your faith and being that difference, because I think the reason why it's so difficult nowadays is because of the influence of other people. There's so many different influences of people partying, drinking, doing drugs, sex, like all these different influences, especially in Nevada. And I just believe that
Why especially in Nevada?
Well, because of the casinos and because of, you know, like more of things like that and prostitution and different things that are in Nevada. And so
do you believe that as a young woman, soon to be married to a young youth pastor who's already had experience in counseling and dealing with youth, that inroads are being made, new directions are being made in lives? Do you see that happening?
Yes.
How so?
New directions being made in life through, sorry, could you just kind of rephrase that?
You have spoken about the influence of friends, the influence of other people's. How did you choose your friends? What kind of people did you decide to spend time with when you were in high school? When early on, you had a lot of cousins, extended family, so you had playmates all the time. But when you eventually emerge into the junior high years and into the senior high years, you have to make some strong decisions there. They want to go here. I'm not so sure I want to go with them. Okay. How do you handle that?
Well, the way that I handle it is because I was very involved with my youth group at the time, and so I had a very group of positive friends, and, you know, just hanging out with them at school and just being involved and connected in the church, that was able to help me not really get into, you know, those other kind of crowds. I wasn't perfect, you know.
None of us are.
I strayed, you know, like that, just like everybody else. We all make mistakes and everything, but I just really think being connected to a church is what can make a difference.
Having parents who are together.
Of course.
An intact marriage means a lot these days. And you learn from your parents because of their discussions, because of sometimes their disappointments, but they work through it. They work through it. It is a commitment. Marriage is a commitment. And it's not an easy commitment. It's a day-by-day walk with one another. But I can't imagine that if the central force in there is not God, how difficult it's going to be. You need to know that through prayer, that through other believers, that you have a support group. You have people who are praying for you, energizing you through prayer. And that makes all the difference. And you feel it. You absolutely feel it.
You do.
Well, Isabel, thank you so much for sharing your personal life with us. Thank you for the future that you have with Ryan coming up. And we will look forward to talking with you later on. And I just want everyone to know that we have a wonderful meal. I invite my guests to come out to Glen Eagles, my favorite place for supper in Carson City. So please join us just as soon as possible, Isabel. And we thank our sponsors again, Copper Nevada, LLC, and we also thank Vito Basque, home of Pete's famous chorizo. So until next week and our brand new guests, have a good evening.
Are you looking for a healthier lifestyle? A more nutritious diet? Do you care about quality? If your answer is yes, or if you are just curious, come into Villa Basque Deli and Cafe right here in Carson City, Nevada. Discover fine Portuguese extra virgin olive oils, vintage balsamic vinegars, and a wide assortment of international health teas provided by distributor Carpa Nevada LLC. In addition to these terrific items, Villa Basque is also the home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, handmade on the premises from Pete's secret family recipe. Satisfy your culinary curiosities. Don't delay.